dear colleagues and distinguished viewers. The title of my today's speech is the Ankara Declaration, a tripartite agreement between Somalia, Ethiopia, and Turkey's mediation efforts. So, diplomats often joke that a successful negotiation is one where everybody leaves the room equally unhappy. But Ankara Declaration suggests something different. A rare moment when three nations, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Turkey, choose to leave the room not with perfect satisfaction, but with a shared commitment to dialogue, stability, and cooperation in a region where those words have often been in short supply. In the Horn of Africa, where history is heavily and alliances shift like desert sands, choosing dialogue over discord is itself an act of courage. The Ankara Declaration is that act. So, the Horn of Africa has long been crucible of geopolitical tension. Somalia and Ethiopia share a turbulent history of territorial disputes, nationalist struggles, and foreign interventions. At the time, this region represents a critical strategic corridor for trade, energy, and security. Into this complex mix entered Turkey, a rising middle power whose blend of humanitarianism, strategic investment, and cultural diplomacy has made it an increasingly significant actor on African stage. The Ankara Declaration, signed in 2024, represents a tripartite agreement aimed at easing tensions between Somalia and Ethiopia while positioning Turkey as mediator and partner in regional development. This presentation examines the declaration of Ankara and its significance, and Turkey's evolving mediation model, and the broader implication for regional and global diplomacy. First, let's look at the historical context, Somalia and Ethiopia. And to understand the weight of Ankara Declaration, we must start with this history. And now let's talk about Turkey's entry into Horn of Africa. Now, Turkey's involvement in Somalia began earnest during 2011 famine, when it combined large-scale humanitarian assistance with infrastructure development and diplomatic engagement. Unlike traditional Western donors, Turkey approached Somalia with mixture of cultural affinity, long-term investment, and willingness to engage at both governmental and grassroots levels. By early 2020s, Turkey has become Somalia's largest bilateral partner in infrastructure and education, and a key supporter of its security forces. These investments gave Turkey not only credibility but also leverage to mediate between Somalia and Ethiopia. So the Ankara Declaration is not a single issue treaty. It is a comprehensive framework addressing security, economic cooperation, and sovereignty. Among its most significant provisions, we have number one, respect for Somali sovereignty. The declaration reaffirms Somalia's territorial integrity, a critical assurance given Ethiopia's historical claims and maritime ambitions. Then, negotiated maritime access for Ethiopia. Ethiopia, a landlocked country since Eritrea's independence, long has sought reliable, sea access. The declaration creates a mechanism for Somalia and Ethiopia to negotiate port access under Turkey's facilitation. Then they have joint security initiatives. The parties agreed coordinated counter-terrorism efforts, intelligence sharing, and joint military exercises targeting threats such as Al-Shabaab. Economic integration. The declaration established a platform for joint infrastructure projects, agricultural development, and energy initiatives aimed at fostering economic independence. And continuous dialogue. Turkey's role as a facilitator ensures the creation of technical committees and regular diplomatic channels to maintain momentum. And there is something special here, the Turkey's mediation model. What makes the Ankara Declaration noteworthy is not just the content, but the approach behind it. Turkey employs what can be called a humanitarian strategic hybrid model. Instead of separating aid, diplomacy, and economic investment, Turkey integrates them. Number one, they have the humanitarian trust building. Turkey's extensive aid in Somalia created a reservoir of goodwill and tradition mediators often lack. And then there is infrastructure as diplomacy. Investment in roads, hospitals, ports are not just development projects, they are tools for friendship building and stability. Then there is cultural and religious affinity. Turkey leverages the shared cultural and religious ties to foster trust, particularly in the Muslim majority Somalia. And there is active but balanced facilitation. Turkey positions itself as a partner rather than a distant arbitrator, aiming to create ownership of the process along the local actors. And this model challenges the conventional Western approach to mediation, which often separates humanitarian aid from the political negotiation. Of course, we have the economic dimensions and peace building. One of the Ankara Declaration's strengths lies in linking peace with economic development. Joint infrastructure projects and shared investments create incentives for cooperation that extend beyond security. For Ethiopia, access to Somali ports is not just logistical issue. It is an economic lifeline. For Somalia, attracting investment and building infrastructure are essential to its state building. And Turkey's emphasis on capacity building rather than dependency is especially significant. Programs that train Somali engineers, farmers, and civil servants indicate a shift from short-term relief to sustainable partnership. Of course, security cooperation. Security is at the heart of Ankara Declaration. Coordinated counterterrorism measures and intelligence sharing aim to address one of the region's most persistent threats, Al-Shabaab. By aligning Somali and Ethiopian security efforts under cooperative framework, Turkey seeks to reduce unilateral military interventions and this lowers the fueled tension. These measures also reflect Turkey's evolving role in security assistance. Rather than deploying large military forces, Turkey focuses on training and capacity building, which aligns with its soft power-driven mediation model. Well, its impact on regional stability is also important. It offers a pathway to reduce long-term tensions between Somalia and Ethiopia, create economic interdependence, this discourages conflict, strengthen the regional security through coordinated efforts, and position Turkey as a credible mediator in Africa and beyond. Of course, we have some challenges and critiques. The path forward is far from simple. Deep-seated mistrust between Somalia and Ethiopia cannot be erased like within a single agreement. Political instability in both countries poses ongoing risks. Some analysts question Turkey's neutrality, arguing that its economic ambitions may complicate the mediation role. Additionally, sustaining momentum will require continuous engagement and coordinated support from international partners. The Horn of Africa has seen many peace initiatives falter due to lack of follow through. Ankara Declaration must avoid this pattern. The Ankara Declaration is also a sign of shifting global dynamics. It reflects the rise of middle powers leveraging cultural affinity and economic diplomacy to influence regions traditionally dominated by Western actors. Turkey's approach could serve as a model for other emerging mediators, particularly in the regions where Western led interventions have faced resistance. The agreement also underscores the importance of integrating humanitarian, economic, and security strategies into a unified mediation framework, a lesson applicable far beyond the Horn of Africa. So, as a conclusion, I should indicate that diplomacy is often said as the art of building bridges you may never cross yourself. The Ankara Declaration is one such bridge, a fragile but hopeful structure spanning decades of mistrust and conflict. Its success depends on the willingness of Somalia, Ethiopia, and Turkey to nurture it with dialogue, economic partnership, and cultural understanding. It requires moving beyond old grievances and embraced shared futures. I am Associate Professor Dr. Hakan ÇORA, and I thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.